Mm-hmm.
Welcome to Santa Barbara Talks with Josh Molina. It's my pleasure today to be here with Rob Fredericks, the Executive Director of the Santa Barbara Housing Authority. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation because, as we know, here in Santa Barbara, housing, is such a huge topic, and all the forms of housing, affordable housing, middle income housing, we just don't have enough housing. And so Rob is somebody who's been dealing with this and helping to bring solutions to the community for a long time. So we're going to talk about everything that's going on. Rob, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Josh. Thanks for having me today. Appreciate it.
Thank you. No, I'm really honored that you take some time here to talk. Let's talk a little bit about, before we get into the micro stuff, I want to talk big picture, affordable housing in Santa Barbara, and what are the challenges? What does it mean? How bad is it, the situation for somebody who wants to live in this community, both in the context of what the housing authority does, but just general, like how tough is it to find a place in Santa Barbara?
It is generally a really tough market, and historically it's been a tough market. Ever since I've been working at the Housing Authority, which has been for the past 25 years, we've faced an incredible housing shortage throughout the South Coast. And it's not just a Santa Barbara problem. When you look at a macro level, the state has a housing deficit of 3.5 million homes, and about 1.2 million of those are needed for capital A affordable housing, which means that for low income households, that means those that earn 80% area median income or below. Those income levels are set by HUD annually. And for Santa Barbara, the low income limit for a family of four is just over $100,000 per year. For a family of two, it's $80,500 per year. And a household of one, that's an income level of $70,050 per year. So to put in context, that's, people don't often look at those income levels in Santa Barbara. That's pretty high. And you have a service industry in Santa Barbara where a lot of people don't make that kind of income, hit those income limits. So we have a lot of low-income families, seniors, and disabled individuals that need affordable housing, and we don't have enough. On our housing authority wait list, we have just over 4,000 households in the South Coast that need affordable housing for low income, that we just don't have enough of that to provide. Over the years, we've done an admirable job of providing affordable housing for the community. And our mission is to provide essentially for low income households as a housing authority. We've produced over 1,370 hard units that the Housing Authority owns and manages throughout the city across 70 different unique developments. And then we also have the Housing Choice Voucher Program that we administer. It's a federal program where the HUD provides housing authorities money to pass through to the local landlord community to help assist with the rental costs for low-income households, where the low-income household, they only pay 30% of their income for the contract rent. The Housing Authority voucher pays the difference between the 30% of the family's income and the contract rent. So it really makes things work. Unfortunately, there's just not enough available, again, to help everybody in need. And what you see happening are a lot of consequences with families being pushed out of the communities where they were born and raised, kids having to move away. You have commuters commuting in from North County or Ventura daily because they can't afford to live in the community where they work. And that causes a whole lot of issues, not only social issues with the families themselves, but environmental issues and just a lot of impacts. So we haven't been providing the housing that's needed. And when you have that disparity of the supply and demand, you're just going to have a spiraling increase of housing costs in the community because the demand outweighs the supply, and developers can essentially charge what the market will bear. And and property owners will do what they can to charge the rent that they can get from the open market.
You mentioned a list. So this is a waiting list of what, more than 4,000 people who are on a list. How long does that date back? So the person who, how long have some of these people been waiting to get affordable housing?
Years. And unfortunately, and the people come to us, and when they come to us, they need the help now. They don't need the help 5 to 7 years from the time that they apply. They want the help now. And unfortunately, the average wait time, depending on preferences, if you're a veteran, you get housed above others. If we have some other housing preferences to, if you're homeless and you come through the coordinated entry system of the county's continuum of care, you get a housing preference there. Otherwise, you're going to wait a very long time for that attrition turnover of the vouchers that we have issued in the community. And it's really a tough thing. Like I said, people, when they come knocking on our door asking for help, they want the help now, not 5 to 7 years from now. And the only thing we can offer is get on the waiting list now, and we move that along. We do a mass update annually of our wait list, where we send out an update and say, are you still in the area? If so, let us know that you want to remain on the active waiting list. Otherwise, we're removing you from the list. So that's where we are confident that those 4,000 in households are active, because we do that purging of our wait list annually.
Is it legal? Do landlords have to accept vouchers? So if there's a government reimbursement for the rest of it, in addition to the amount that the person can afford to pay, do they have to accept that, or is it an issue where some landlords don't accept it and that exacerbates the housing challenges?
It's been an issue up to a couple of years ago. SB 329 was passed. It's a state law that prohibits discrimination based on source of income, and specifically prohibiting landlords from discriminating against Section 8 housing choice voucher holders simply because they're a voucher holder. It was meant to put voucher holders on equal footing with other households in the market seeking housing. Now, a landlord still has their own suitability criteria that they go through when they can do their background checks on the voucher holder, and they could legally decline the voucher holder from renting to the voucher holder based on their criteria that they move through, but they can't simply say no to renting to a voucher holder. Before, you would see advertisements in the paper. Now on Craigslist is the main way people look for rental housing, and you would see advertisements from landlords that said in bold, no Section 8, no voucher holders. That is illegal to do since the passage of that bill. Some landlords aren't aware of that new law, and they still put out that kind of advertisement, and they still decline voucher holders. So it is still somewhat of an issue, but with that law that passed, hopefully that'll help. There's a movement at the federal level to have a federal law passed as well to prohibit discrimination based on source of income. And hopefully that'll be passed throughout the country, because it is a problem throughout the entire nation, especially in tight housing markets where landlords frankly don't want to get trapped into the bureaucracy of working with a housing authority and having to fill out extra paperwork, do extra inspections to ensure that the unit is safe. They want to be unfettered with with government interference on it. But we try to be a very user-friendly housing authority. We do inspections on the same day that the landlord requests it. We do electronic signatures for contracts. We try to be really user-friendly with the landlord community, because if we aren't, the landlords would put up more resistance to the housing authority from working with us.
Yeah. So as a reporter, I cover a lot of these meetings. I talk to people on these issues, and obviously there's a huge amount of the population that is supportive of affordable housing. There are some others, though, who take more of a black and white sort of perspective, which is not everybody can afford to live in Santa Barbara. If you can't afford to live here, go somewhere where you can. Can you talk about that attitude and that perspective? And does that hold up logically? Or just talk about that perspective. Like, well, go to Lompo, go somewhere where it's affordable. Why do you need to live here by the beach? This is expensive. That's a perspective that you've heard, I've heard. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think it's for me, I don't agree with that perspective at all. It's something we always hear, when we propose a new development, we're going to always have a faction of people who are against the development costs to provide affordable housing in our community. But it's something that's needed. I mentioned that we have a huge service industry in Santa Barbara, and people need to really work where they live. There is something called the U.S. Constitution, which provides for the right to travel and the right to live where people choose. And I think that as a community, we need to stand up and provide the help for our neighbors that need that extra affordable housing help. And you can attack it from two different segments. You can provide the affordable housing that's needed, and we should also look at paying a living wage in the community to help people afford the higher rents. And I think we're starting to see some movement with higher wages in the service industry jobs, and I think the pandemic showing that the historically lower waging paying jobs, now they're coming out of the pandemic and they're needing to pay more to attract people to come back to work, which is kind of a good thing, I think, to help people afford the place where they live. So, I really would hate to see Santa Barbara become like a Monaco, just outside of southern France, where nobody can afford to live there except the ultra wealthy, and you're forbidden almost to live there. You can come to work here for us, but you can't live here, and that's just bad all the way around. I think to have a healthy, vibrant community, we need to be inclusive. We need more equality, and to do that, we need to provide the affordable housing that's needed. And like you say, we're always going to have the people on the other side that say, hey, provide it out in the desert, provide a big encampment for the homeless out in the desert and move them all out there. Well, a lot of the people who are homeless, I know, because I go out every year and do the surveys for the point in time count. I know a lot of these folks actually lived here in homes before they ended up homeless. Over 50% of the people we surveyed year after year actually grew up in Santa Barbara and lived here before they became homeless. And it's a failure of a lot of different systems, whether it's our healthcare system or our mental health system or just social systems, causing the increases in homelessness. And then you have a lot of people that were one paycheck away from becoming homeless, and then they end up getting a health issue or anything else, and they end up being forced out of their home and end up homeless. Now, there is a segment of the homeless population that that has a lot of mental health issues, and we need to provide the help there and the proper housing. We need to provide the proper housing. What's pictured behind me on my screen is El Carrillo. And we built that 15 years ago. It was the first permanent supportive housing development in Santa Barbara County, serving those who are moving from homelessness. And it's one of the most beautiful developments in Santa Barbara. And it's one of the most dense in Santa Barbara at 122 units per acre. But it's something we provided, and we've been able to provide stability for the people who are moving from homelessness and stabilize them. And then they're able to either move to more permanent, larger, less supportive services entrenched type of development and more independent living after they become stabilized. And it's been a terrific success. Frankly, we need 10 more El Carrillos throughout Santa Barbara.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a myth. I know I've heard some people saying that, people are holding onto their homes, holding onto their wealth so that new generations can't afford, there's not enough access to inventory to buy. And, I grew up here, and I can tell you right now, for those of us whose parents did not own homes, whose parents rented, all of us were driven out of the community, the locals, I'm fortunate enough that, that it didn't happen with me, but a lot of my friends, can't afford to live here, the people I went to high school with. And, it isn't as though, everybody who's in Santa Barbara owned a home, his parents owned a home when they grew up here. Most of us didn't, and most of us had to move elsewhere. And it's just this puzzle. Like, everybody has to figure out how to do it on their own. It's like survival of the fittest, almost. But I think your point is a really good one, that locals who grew up here can't afford to live here if their parents didn't own a home. And so now you've got like this new generation of people say, well, I should be able to afford to live here too. It's like, well, yes, but so many of us were driven out before you. It's very complicated. It isn't just something that happened 5 years ago. It's been going on for a long time. I wrote about a project recently on North La Cumbre Street. I think it was a 48 unit housing that went to the ABR. Can you talk about that project? And then you already mentioned El Carrillo. Talk about some of the work that the housing authority is doing to address this issue.
Yeah, sure. So that development up on Upper La Cumbre, 210 North La Cumbre that you mentioned, it's something that we're really excited about. We don't have a name like we typically name developments like El Carrillo for that property yet, but it's a 48, as it's currently drawn out now, 48 unit development, large family development, meaning larger bedroom sizes. 25% of the units are 3-bedroom units. And then another portion of the development are 2-bedroom units, and a small number of 1-bedrooms that we're planning to put in there as well, with a community room. It's courtyard style development inside, to where there's play areas for the kids, raised planters for vegetable gardens. And why we're excited about that development is, for the last 15 years or so, we've been focusing our new developments on special needs like homeless, veterans housing, senior housing developments, but not housing for families, aside from the vouchers that we issue. And there's such a need for affordable housing for families with kids. So that's what we're planning there. It's in a great school district to provide opportunities for kids to go to get their education in a good school district. It's in a higher income area. When you look at Santa Barbara, the San Roque, Upper La Cumbre area is higher income. So it's an area that we thought was perfect for planning more family units. And that concept hearing we went to the ABR on, we received really good feedback. We're taking design inspiration from the neighboring farmhouse design. So it's not your typical Santa Barbara mission style type development. It's farmhouse style, and it fits in with the neighborhood. We like to pride ourselves on our developments of not only fitting in, but improving the neighborhood. and revitalizing the neighborhood. And that's something we believe we'll be doing with that development. We are taking advantage of a state law called SB 330 on that development and state bonus density, which it allows us essentially to not have any constraints on density. We could put many more units on that lot without being constrained by the city of Santa Barbara, but we're doing it by looking at really what fits in the neighborhood with parking and that's needed and the number of units, so we don't come in overbearing with the neighborhood on what we propose. And part of that state law allows us to only go through a maximum of 5 hearings for review. And we don't have to go to Planning Commission for that development. It's just essentially Architectural Board of Review for their approvals on that development. So that's something that we're excited to take through. Now, we're not disregarding what the city needs or what should be done there. That's why we look forward to the comments that the ABR provides to make the development better. Every development that we've taken through the City Design Review Board, it's actually made our developments better. Having those comments, making the articulation of the elevation a little bit better, so it's not boring, and it makes it a more livable community for the development. So that we try to do that with everything. I'd love to now segue to another development that we've been working on for the last few years on the Carrillo Castillo commuter lot. You'll recall that we proposed a few years ago also putting tiny homes on that lot temporarily with a lot of community feedback that they don't want that there. And I think you're going to get that anywhere you say we're going to put tiny homes for the homeless. We think we would have done a very good job with doing that temporarily at that location and providing, taking into account the community's concerns with security, but we heard them, they didn't want it. We didn't get the funding that was needed to do that development correctly on the tiny homes. So instead, we had already, before that even came up, the Housing Authority has been looking at city-owned lots for providing housing. And we heard from the local community that they don't want affordable housing there. They want housing, low income housing. They wanted it for the missing middle, those that don't qualify for capital A affordable housing, meaning that 80% area median income and below that I mentioned at the beginning of our conversation. But they also can't, they also can't afford market rate. So that's what's that missing middle. It's typically we define it as the 80 to 120. So we've been working with the city on creating a development there. We're looking at about 68 units on site there that will provide housing for people that are downtown workforce that can't afford to live in the community. They have to commute in every day. It would be a mix of studios, 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms. And the big piece of this, though, is there's no funding available to create that type of housing. There's plenty of subsidy, although hard fought, for capital A low income affordable housing through the low income housing tax credit program, the federal home program that provides funding, and other state housing and community development grants, but nothing really for providing funding equity for this missing middle to construct the needed units. So we've been working with a local, an altruistic investment firm that's willing to put in the equity that's needed, about $20 million to provide for the city would put in the land, and this altruistic investment firm would put in the $20 million, and then we can move forward with it. And we're almost there now to where we're planning on coming back to city council very soon to get approval to move that that forward and then go through the entitlement process as quickly as we can and get that project built. We did hold a community meeting almost a year ago now with the community on what we were planning there. And we showed them 3 different scenarios, that one maximizing the density at over 100 units, and then one at about 75 units, and then this one at about 68 units. And that seems to be the sweet spot with the parking that's needed and what the community can tolerate with what we would put in there, being a 3- and 4-story development.
Right. You'll have to lose a lot of those trees there, I imagine. That's a unique.
We would,
you know.
That is, it has a beautiful tree canopy on the lot with forget the name of the trees right now. The perimeter has some jacarandas, but the other that I'm losing it right now. But beautiful tree canopy, as you mentioned. We would have to lose a great deal of them in the center of that development, but we would keep the perimeter trees and add in some other trees along the creek there to provide some screening. But again, it's kind of a balance, of looking at what do we need in the city. That parking lot is never full. Drive by it any day of the week. It's never full. It's they can reallocate some of that parking to other surface parking lots, and we could build needed housing homes for the missing middle. Those folks that, again, aren't low income, they don't qualify for our other typical developments that we build, and they can't afford the market rate units either. So that's one we're really excited about. Right. One more that we just received tax credit funding on is 116 East Coda Street. Okay. This was a development that was received approvals. A private developer owned it, and they received approvals under the AUD to build 15 market rate 2-bedroom units on the property. And it's right next to the park. And we were able to negotiate with that developer and purchase the property with those entitlements to build the 15 2-bedroom units, but we needed more. We wanted to serve people moving from homelessness, like El Carrillo behind me. And we took that same building envelope of the 15 units, kept the same architecture, but split up those 2-bedroom units into studios, where now we're going to be providing 28 studio units for people moving from homelessness with on-site supportive services, community room. It'll be a great development, and we're beginning construction in September of this year. So we're really excited about getting that one underway.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's quite the switch from the fewer market rate to something else, much, for more people, accommodating more people in the community. Can you talk about some of the state legislation? We've seen increasingly in recent years the state passing law or attempting to pass laws that force local communities to build more. And there's this pushback, of course, with local communities saying, we need more local control. There's not a one size fits all. The state is saying, well, you need to do something because you're not building enough. And without this sort of push, nothing's going to happen, or not enough at a fast enough pace is going to happen. Can you talk about SB9 and SB10 and sort of what those are and what the real concerns are regarding one of those bills?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, there's been, over the past few years, there's been a host of housing packages of bills introduced at the state level to provide answers to the needed housing. I said there's a deficit of 3.5 million homes needed throughout California that haven't been provided. So the state legislature has finally said, look, we're going to force some laws to the local jurisdictions because the local jurisdictions aren't meeting their regional housing needs allocation numbers. And so two bills that are working their way through the state legislature now are SB9 and SB10. SB9 by Senator Atkins is a bill that essentially in urbanized areas gets rid of single family zoning. It would, if passed as currently amended, this bill would allow owners of single family units on single family lots to either split their lots into two separate legal lots and build another home on the new lot, or just add a duplex on the existing lot. So if an owner took the lot and split it and added another home, they could add an ADU to each lot, where now they're building 4 units on what currently exists as a single family home on the lot. Now there are a series of constraints where an owner wouldn't be allowed to do that. Again, if they're not in an urbanized area, if they're in an environmentally sensitive area, such as a high fired area, a flood zone area, they wouldn't be allowed to do this. But otherwise, if this bill is passed, they will be owners would be allowed to do that. So it's a serious upzoning from 1 unit up to 4 units. So what would that do? That would, one, increase probably property values and costs. When you upzone, that's what happens. But you also get more housing units that are desperately needed. A lot of local jurisdictions are very much against this bill because it takes away that local control, the local zoning control. Historically, local zoning control has been left at the local level because the local jurisdiction knows what fits best where. But because the housing hasn't been produced in certain areas, these types of bills are being introduced, and we're probably going to continue to see these types of bills being introduced and passed until the housing that's needed is produced. So I know the League of California Cities has come out against this bill. Personally, I see some flaws in this bill as well. The bill doesn't provide for any requirements of affordable housing. In Santa Barbara, what we're seeing built, aside from what the Housing Authority provides, is market rate housing, not middle income housing, not moderate, not affordable. The private development communities are building market rate housing. We need more affordable housing, and I would have liked to have seen some affordability requirements on these duplexes that are being, at least for a number of years, to be provided. But I do think it's an opportunity in some areas, if the bills are tweaked, to provide housing. The other bill that you mentioned, SB10 by Senator Wiener, is more of a permissive bill. It's not you shall do this, local community. It's more you may do this, local community, if you desire. And it would allow for a local jurisdiction to rezone a lot to allow for 10 residential units on the lot without going through CEQA. And it would also provide, which stands for the California Environmental Quality Act. And CEQA has its place for ensuring that you're not harming the environment with your new development, but also a lot of NIMBY organizations and individuals have used CEQA to stop affordable housing developments in the past. So a lot of these bills we're seeing are allowing the new lots that would be proposed, like SB10, the 10 units on a lot, to bypass CEQA and allow for ministerial approval at the local jurisdiction. But again, SB10 is more of a may. It's not you shall do this. Look, it's it's being left up to the local jurisdiction if they want to adopt it. And again, it has to be in an urbanized area near local transit to do this. So it's not going into, more of your rural type, it wouldn't be going up into the Riviera and allowing 10 units on a lot. That wouldn't be possible, but more in your downtown area would allow for that.
There are some who say that even though Santa Barbara has not been building affordable, recently they included the inclusionary component with the AUD, but they say when it allows people to move up in the housing chain. So if you're renting something less affordable or more affordable, and then you move up to the more expensive place, then it opens up some housing. Is that real, or is that just like an economics argument that people make to justify building market rate housing? What do you think?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think theoretically it would work, right? If you had these market rate units being rented to people that are currently renting those older existing homes. But what I've been seeing and been talking to a lot of our local real estate professionals is that once these new units are built and developed, they're being rented to people moving into the area from out of the area. They're being even to people just leasing a unit, long-term lease, but using it as a weekend getaway from the LA community. And we're seeing those rents, of these new development, these 2 bedrooms being rented for $5,500 per month is what the cost is. So a lot of the people that would move from their existing older units, they can't afford that. So I'm not seeing that natural ladder progression that people use as a justification. Also, I would love to see more inclusionary be required. And there's been that discussion at the Planning Commission level and recently at the City Council level for inclusionary, increasing to 15% outside of the central business district. I would love to see more inclusionary be required. I would like to see it based on data. And that's where, I know Council Member Snedden and a couple of others wanted to move forward with that 15% inclusionary right now. But I don't want to see development be turned off and not get any of that 10% developed just because we're increasing it to 15%. I want to see that it's actually feasible through the study that they're doing. And hopefully if the city can get that study done quickly, we're not going to lose a lot of opportunity between now and October when that study is done to see that, yes, we can go to the 15% and not have a problem. And I know other council members have wanted to see higher inclusionary. If in my utopian world, I would love to see affordable housing for every income level and housing provided for everybody, but we're not going to see that. The 10% inclusionary that's in effect now, how many market rate units would it take to get just 80 units? It would take us to build 800 market rate units to get the 80 inclusionary. We're not going to get, it's going to take years to get what's needed. We need more incentives rather than the carrot to have developers create more inclusionary. I would love to see fee reductions on fees to the developers if they agree to have kind of an increasing scale of allow them more units if they build a certain percentage of inclusionary. If they build 25% of the development and inclusionary, allow them some more units and give them some more fee reductions, on on development fees. Development fees, even for affordable housing, they'll make your head spin, the amount of the fees. We paid $500,000 for our Gardens on Hope, our 90-unit senior development that we just finished on Hope Avenue. $500,000 in fees that we paid. Wow. That if you could say take a chunk of that and build more units instead of fees, that would make sense.
Right.
So, yeah.
I want to talk to you a little bit about you personally. I know that a little more than a year ago, I asked you to be on the podcast, and you were dealing with some health issues at that time. And I'm really happy that you're doing better and you're turned the corner. But I want to let you sort of talk about it. Can you talk a little bit about, specifically your health issue in the last year and just how you've been working through that?
Yeah. So it was a scary time for me last year. It was right around when we had the pandemic shut everything down, is when I was also diagnosed with stage 4 squamous cell carcinoma that's traveling along a trigeminal nerve in my face, and it's something very rare. They hardly ever see it, and it was moving back toward the base of my brain. So immediately they got me, and my doctors got me in for treatment on chemotherapy and radiation. I had to drive down daily to Los Angeles for that, and thankfully my rock of my world, my wife, was able to take some time off and drive me every single day for those treatments and and help me through that difficult time. You know, chemo is no fun for anybody that's been through that. And it's, so I went through that. And then in January of this year, that was in the fall, in January of this year, I got some updated scans, and and I was still having some weird feeling in my face, and it showed that the cancer was still there. It didn't do the job, the radiation and the chemo. And so the doctor said they gave me the maximum radiation they could give me when they did, and the chemo. So they got me on a new type of immunotherapy drug that's called Libtayo. And if you've heard commercials probably on TV talk about Keytruda to extend your life, well, that's what they have. It's a similar type of drug that attacks the type of cancer I have with my own immune system. And I've been on that for several months now. And the latest scans I have seem to appear that it's working. So we're going to keep on that, and it's kept the cancer at bay. I'm feeling good. I've been at work actually since the end of last year because I love what I do. It helps ground me and helps, the housing authority, we're mission driven, and I love the mission that we do of improving our community, providing the affordable housing. And I think it's actually helped my health to get back to work, at least my psyche. And I want to give a shout out to my entire team at the housing authority. I couldn't have done it without them, Josh. We have a great team there. If any one of us are down for the count, we all fill in where it's needed. And they certainly fell in for me and for the community during the pandemic. We didn't miss a beat. We kept issuing vouchers. We kept providing the housing. We finished Gardens on Hope and filled up the place with vulnerable seniors, many of them homeless, into Gardens on Hope. Would love to give you a tour of that facility, that home for seniors someday. It's beautiful, but that was all due to the team doing all that work. They did a fantastic job. So I've been through the ringer. A lot of people have been through worse than me. My friend, our legendary Hal Conklin went through the very same not type of cancer, but in the same area. And I know a lot of people went through a lot worse, and some didn't make it. And I'm just thankful that I made it, and I'm able to carry on and do some work for the community.
Yeah, well, that's great. I'm glad that you found something that is working, and I hope it continues to work. And, I think what you do at the Housing Authority and what your entire team does sort of universally is supported, appreciated. You talk about your projects blending in to the community, and that's through architecture. It's also through excellent site location, and I know that's a big part of what you do is you try to do the best to fit the need, but you try to do it also so that it has the least impacts on a neighborhood. And so there's a lot of thoughtfulness and sensitivity to that as well. But I mean, everything the Housing Authority does, I think everyone's super appreciative of that role that you play in the community. And most people drive by these units or these homes and don't even know they're there unless they're pointed out, kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. And or it's the best looking building on the block. We have people drive into our garden court development, which is another development for seniors, and they drive in and thinking they want to check for a vacancy to check into the bed and breakfast for the weekend because it looks that nice and inviting. So, yeah.
I'm going to just give you the last word here, Rob. We've talked about a lot, but if you could just sort of talk, forward thinking about the need for traditional affordable housing with, capital A, I guess it's called, what the Housing Authority does, and more so speak to attitudes, perceptions. Last word here, let's stop the fight over this, right? How can we work together so that we can house as many people as possible, knowing that it's never ending, right? No community is ever going to solve it, but you got to do the best you can. But let me give you the last word to talk about that importance.
Yeah, we'll do it. I think you had the perfect words there. Let's stop the fight. That's really what we have to do. And Santa Barbara is steeped in a history of having a beautiful community where people want to live and can live. I want to see Santa Barbara continue to do that. We're going to have a lot of transformational changes along the central business district, the downtown area. I want to see that area include housing, but not just for market rate, but have it inclusive for the person that works downstairs in the restaurant or at the retail facility, and or people who can afford a little bit higher market rate or the middle income. I want to see it blended into the community. And we really do have to stop the no every time a development is proposed in different areas in the city. We have to look at the ways, okay, well, we know we need it. How can we make it better for the community at that sited location so that it does have minimal negative impact, but major positive impact on the community, both for the people that live there or for the people that will be living there. We have to come together to look at solutions on all of these different areas. There's going to be the conversation about floor to area ratios moving forward and how big those should be for developments. Well, we all are going to come at this at different viewpoints, from the development community to the environmentalists to the nonprofits, builders like our housing authority. But we need to work together to find the solutions and to say, yes, this can be done here. If we do this, if we tweak it here, tweak it there, it can be done. I really want to see Santa Barbara continue to be the jewel that everyone holds it up to be throughout the world, even that it's a beautiful place. But we need to have it be a place where we have equality and inclusiveness. And if we don't have that, we're not going to have that place that's held up as a jewel. So.
Well said, Rob. I appreciate your time, and enjoy the rest of your day. And thanks for making time, and good luck to you professionally and personally.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.